How are we doing, everybody? John here, a new format for reviews for big albums in 2022. And they don't get much bigger than the Weeknd's Dawn FM, do they? What a way to start the year. I've always looked for ways to be able to talk about albums after I react to them, and traditional music reviews, they don't really do it for me, although I've tried in the past. But what does everybody love? Everybody loves a tier list, so we're going to go through track by track, ranking each of the songs and then giving an overall rating to the album at the end of the video. The Weeknd Dawn FM official track tier list. Let's go. Quickly before I start, just looking at the rankings, the S tier is reserved for songs that I really truly think will be heralded as classics, or at least to me, over the test of time. And then we've got A, B, C is around them, what people would call mid, D is disappointing, and then there's trash at the bottom. Okay, let's kick things off then with the opener. It's Dawn FM. I'm just going to put it into B because, I mean, it's not really a song, but it has those warm synths and it is just a really nice opener. It sets the tone. Jim Carrey makes his first appearance, obviously, and it's a good tone setter for the album. It doesn't outlast its welcome, but it really does get you in the right place. So I think a B is fair for that one. The first proper track then, and I absolutely love this track, but it's definitely caused some controversy. I think Billboard ranked Gasoline lower than Every Angel Is Terrifying, which is basically not a song at all, which is mad to me. For me, Gasoline goes straight into A. I love the tone of it. I love the little drums that is used there, and I think the thing that's most controversial about this song is obviously Abel's voice is pitch shifted, which isn't the first time that's happened in one of his tracks. Think of Initiation. But he also adopts this English accent, which I loved because it reminded me of the music from when I was really young, like the music that I just hear. I can understand why it put certain people off, but I think it really fits in with the tone sort of sonically of what he's going for. Incidentally though, if Abel was looking for somebody with an English accent to help out with his album, I know a guy.
Sailing on my sea of solitude, a lifeline for this tired heart, a remedy, a muse. But now my lungs are blackened, my spirit lies confused. Each breath I gasp could be my last, I hunger for the truth. I'm left broken here, my mind gripped by fear. I am whole no more. A man split in two, no life left to choose. I am whole no more. California bleeding, California bleeding, California bleeding, California bleeding.
How Do I Make You Love Me? I absolutely fucking love this song. From the first second I heard it, I loved it. Now the intro to this track is a little bit of a red herring because it starts off kind of soft, but when it kicks in and when those synths start to truly soar, my goodness, mate, that chorus is bloody triumphant. I absolutely adore this song. It gets better on every listen, as to be fair, almost every single track on this album does. For me, I can see this one really standing the test of time to be one of his true classics. I'm personally putting it in the S tier. How Do I Make You Love Me? I really do think it's the standout track with this kind of thumping first part of the album. Mate, I just love it. I love it so much. I love the record so much, not to spoil the ending, but this track is such a standout. And the way that it then transitions into Take My Breath, a track that was the only track that we'd heard before in full anyway, but it's the extended edition on the album, and then that rise and the fall as the beat shifts from How Do I Make You Love Me into the breath of Take My Breath. Ingenious production, an ingenious moment, and by that point you can see on the reaction I was so captivated by this record. I mean, you saw what happened, I fucking smashed up my mic. The track itself, Take My Breath, I've been umming and ahhing about this one. I have heard it a lot of times. I do really like the track, but I don't think it's one of the true standouts from this album, or indeed the true standouts from the Weeknd's back catalogue. And put it into B. In truth, it should probably be sat somewhere between A and B, but I'm going to put it into B for now because I do worry that in 6 months' time, which is when I'll have my true full-formed opinion, I think, on this album, that this won't be one of my favourites. But all this is subject to change after 6 months. That's my rules. I've got my timings. First reaction, 4, 5, 6 listens in, and then 6 months. Anything in between those times can always alter your opinion. but 6 months is when you truly know how much a record has settled with you. Right, the next proper single, we've got the video out there. It's Sacrifice. That hook at the beginning, the riff, I guess you'd call it, Swedish House Mafia produced, really reminds me of In Excess, which is ironic, seeing as Take My Breath, certainly the video for Take My Breath is about autoerotic asphyxiation, which is how Michael Hutchence from In Excess died. Regardless, yeah, it's an absolute banger. Right, this would almost be an S-tier song for me. It's just the chorus doesn't quite deliver at the same level as the chorus in How Do I Make You Love Me. The rest of the track though, man, the beat, it sounds like something that could have been taken from a Michael Jackson record, and you can say that about a lot of this, and of course a lot of The Weeknd's back catalogue. It really fits into the aesthetic of the album as well, in terms of lyrics as well. We'll talk about the concept of the album later. For me, Sacrifice is an A track. A Tale by Quincy, bit of an interlude, but you know, we'll drop it into C for now, just to be completist. It's good, it serves its purpose well. And that moves into Out of Time. Now, Out of Time, really interesting about this track. This is actually sampled from a Japanese pop track called Midnight Pretenders by Tomoko Aran, like a pop song from the 80s in Japan. It's really weird clicking on that song, go and listen to it, and you're like, oh, it's the exact same instrumental. But then when she goes to sing, it's a completely different song. So many commenters told me about this as well, so that's a really interesting one. Now, typically, I don't tend to go for the more sort of positive, soft and gentle R&B / pop ballad / sort of soul ballad type tracks. Typically, however, it just delivers. It's a gorgeous track, it's a standout, the chorus just hits, it's catchy, it has meaning. I think a lot of the tracks of this album have more meaning. If you can get me to love a song in that style, it must be doing something right. So I'm going to drop that in the A category, which I wasn't expecting, to be honest, when I first heard it. Next up then, Here We Go Again, featuring a slightly strange feature from the always amazing Tyler, the Creator. I mean, he kind of delivers on his verse. I just don't know if it necessarily fits that well. I don't think this is a standout track from the record. It is in a similar way to Out of Time, a little bit too soft for my personal taste, and I do think it's actually dragged down a little bit by the feature, and that's nothing on Tyler, it doesn't really fit. For now, I'm going to drop it into the C category. Hopefully that will go up over time. There were certainly tracks on After Hours where that happened, like Save Your Tears and In Your Eyes particularly. Scared to Live as well, though I think saying that all three of those songs are better. Okay, we're getting to a really superb 3-track run now, with Best Friends kicking it off like moody synths that really hit you in your chest plate. The verses really pierce through. I think his voice is outstanding on this track. I think if it had been a 4-minute track, it might not have had the substance to be able to carry it, but at just over 2 minutes, yeah, it absolutely delivers, and it kind of re-energizes the record. It's fucking raw, it's sexy, man. I like it a lot. It's going into A. Is There Someone Else up next? This pitched up vocal sample at the beginning is so gorgeous. The start of this song is so gorgeous. I thought we were getting a true Weeknd classic. I will say, over its slightly elongated runtime, it loses a little bit of power about 2/3 of the way through, but picks back up by the end. Still an outstanding track. It's a gorgeous track. It's a standout for this middle part of the album. It just doesn't quite get into the S tier for me. Listen, this is an A track, and A tracks are very, 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 very good. Taking a look at the tier list now, look, I mean, it's a very, very strong record so far. Really high up there, up towards the upper end of the tier list. And we're not surprised, are we? Really, Jesus Christ. Talking of transitions again, the transitions from Best Friend to Is There Someone Else and then into Starry Eyes, it feels like its own like specific trio on the album, and I think perhaps this is the trio, perhaps even more so than opening trio of Gasoline, How Do I Make You Love Me, and then Take My Breath. This actually might be the standout trio after, what, like I say, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever it might be, because Starry Eyes is just a superb track, and really, if you listen to the lyrics, this really is Abel speaking on that subject that we were talking about how he was before, like the stars that were in his eyes, the way that he behaved before, and how he's maturing and allowing that character to die. I mean, I've seen one review, the Guardian review, which talked about maybe this is the last Weeknd album. I don't believe it to be, just because he sort of feels like that character may have come to the end now. I mean, I think he's so intertwined, and so many people call him Abel testify that I think he doesn't need to kill the character of the Weeknd, but there's definitely something in that, and to that, this track goes into A again for me. Unfortunately, I do think the album takes a little bit of a downturn here. By far the worst track on the album, Every Angel is Terrifying. I mean, it's not really a track, but the problem with it is it's such a troll, because it starts off like big and synthy and grand and you're thinking, wow, we're going to get another Tears in the Rain or something here. It really starts to actually sound specifically like that track, and then it just turns into an ad for kind of the Dawn FM concept, and it's fine and it has a couple of little moments, but because of the troll, I'm going to have to put it into D, just because it's like, I don't think anybody listened to that for the first time and wasn't, didn't feel let down. And hopefully we do actually hear the beginning of that song turned into a full song at some point, maybe on the bonus. Who knows? Yeah, it was a real troll, let's not lie. Don't Break My Heart, it feels like an album track to me. What I mean by that is it's not filler, but it just not really have the sort of standout moments of many of the other tracks on the album. It kind of does its job. I think if you'd taken it out of the album, it wouldn't have necessarily hurt the project as a whole, but it helps to fill out the runtime. So I guess in that respect, it is filler. Production is amazing as always. The vocals are good. Nothing really negative to say about the track, but it doesn't do a great deal for me as well. Again, it was one of those ones that I was hoping would get better over time, and it hasn't yet. So for that reason, I'm going to pop it into C. Always got a chance with a track like that to elevate, especially on an album I'm going to listen to as many times as Dawn FM. It's going to be on basically permanent rotation for the next 12 months. Next up then, I Heard You're Married. I wasn't too sure about this one at first. Lil Wayne again, not really fitting as a feature. I'm not 100% sold on the features on this album overall. Apart from Jim Carrey and Quincy Jones, especially Jim Carrey, who does an amazing job as the Dawn FM DJ, at one point sounding like a cult leader, at one point we'll talk about in a minute, sounding almost like Baz Luhrmann and the Sunscreen song. Overall, this track has grown on me, actually. There's something about the way it breaks down in the middle, there's something just about the classiness and the crispness of the instrumentation, and because of that, it's going to go into B. There was a moment where this was definitely a C track. I doubt it'll ever get higher in my estimation, but I was actually quite pleased to hear that again. So yeah, a B for me. Just as you think the album's kind of winding down though and never going to hit those heights again of the beginning, oh my goodness, Less Than Zero comes along and puts itself straight into the S tier. It reminds me of Seasons by Future Islands, a gorgeous sort of synth pop song, synth pop indie song. The Weeknd definitely, I mean, it's going to be a massive hit. I think this is going to be a huge hit if and when he chooses to put it out as a single. It may be one of those ones where TikTok might take it beforehand. It feels like a true classic from the 80s. Just those ascending synths are so beautiful. It's one of those, oh man, it's so heartfelt as well, so pure. It's so full of that sort of regret and remorse, but just this kind of a melancholy vibe to it. It's not too forced. It's not too over the top. I mean, it's very much pop melodies. It's very much pop chord structure. It's nothing really groundbreaking in that respect, but just as a moment to kind of finish off this mood, this moment, this piece, I just love it, man. Right, there's one more track, and it's Phantom Regret by Jim, and it's going into A. Now, I don't normally like spoken word interlude tracks or closers, especially ones that rhyme, especially when they're not done by musicians in traditional sense, which is what all of these things, all of that applies to this song. Not unlike Baz Luhrmann's Sunscreen song, I think this is less preachy, it's less pious than that. It just has this kind of beautiful somber moment to it, and I've seen people talking about listening to it and it really connecting for them in certain moments. It really does also do a great job of kind of summing up the concept of the album. I believe that it's basically like a guy who's died and he's in a purgatorial state, which is the equivalent of a traffic jam, listening to this like easy listening radio station as he's about to ascend to the light. That's the basic concept of the album. And in this moment, he goes through his regrets and remorses and, some of the stuff that he loved. I don't think every single moment of every single song is directly married to that concept, and I actually don't mind that at all. I don't mind it. It's more of an overarching sort of general concept rather than every single moment is tied in. As an ending to this, it just really helps redefine and sort of reinforce the mood of the piece, and Jim Carrey's performance is fantastic. I love the fact that he seems fully invested. Comparing it to the rest of his back catalogue, again, it's too early to do that. I think it's a different type of record to After Hours. I think that had more connection to his past music, and I mean, there's definitely all sorts of 80s influence in his past music. This as like a real moment in time, it's sort of like a lot of it is so directly connected to the music that was playing in my house, in the car, in shops when I was a really young kid here in England. I'm born in the early 80s, and I remember this type of music without even necessarily knowing who the artists were at the time. You don't when you're 4, 5, 6 years old. It's so specific to that genre, especially sort of the first half of the album. Obviously there's some Michael Jackson in there, some smooth R&B moments, and there's a little bit of disco in there as well, but I love that type of music. It reminds me of happy times being a child, but also I've grown to love a lot of that music and actually realise how accomplished so much of it is. And you can hear Abel's appreciation and love for this genre as well, but also how he's using this type of music to reinforce who he is now, who he's evolving into as a person, as a character, as an artist, and also as a pop star. Some people are asking and wishing that he'd return to that trilogy sound, but I said this on Twitter and it did crazy numbers. Think about all those rock bands who've just tried to recapture their sound that they had when they were youthful and full of energy or anger or whatever it was that drove those first couple of records, and they just end up running out of riffs, they run out of ideas, they run out of chords, they just run out of energy, and one of two things happens. They literally start basically remaking the same songs, but it just doesn't have the same power. Or they go super middle of the road and just make songs that, you know, could sound like they could be on a bank commercial. But he needs to evolve and reinvent himself in order to stay relevant, to stay at the top of his game. But also, it still sounds like him, man. While we may adore that sound, it's also not fair for him because he was in a completely different place mentally in terms of his happiness, in terms of his spirit back then. So it's unfair to kind of put him back there because we kind of take that for granted a little bit. Overall score, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. What a start to 2022. Thank you very much for the incredible support on the video, on all the Weeknd videos, and thank you, of course, to the Weeknd, to Abel, to giving us this album so early. Guys, hope you like the tier list format, and I'll leave you with our new friend.
Sailing on my sea of solitude, a lifeline for this tired heart, a remedy, a muse. But now my lungs are blackened, my spirit lies confused. Each breath I gasp could be my last, I hunger for the truth. I'm left broken here, my mind gripped by fear. I am home no more. A man split in two, no life left to choose. I am whole no more. California bleeding, California bleeding, California bleeding, California bleeding.